When you hit Union level 45 in Weathering Waves, you'll be able to pick a free 5-star standard weapon. Because of this, it's important to know what each of the standard weapons can do and how they're going to benefit you. So today, we are going to take a look at the value that each of these weapons can provide for you, and we're going to see which one is going to have the most value for you to pick for your account. And definitely stay tuned for the end of the video as well, because I'm going to be choosing my free 5-star weapon and giving my thoughts as to why for my account, because it is going to be different for every person's account based on what they have and what they want to use on their account. And also, just as another disclaimer, when I am discussing the passives of these weapons, I'm going to be discussing them with no dupes, so it's going to be at just pulling one copy of the weapon, because I feel like, especially for a lot of players, it's going to be a new weapon and not getting a dupe of a weapon that they already have. So discussing their passives at the base level is going to be the best way to go about it, so you can have a better idea of what you're going to be getting just from getting the first copy of the weapon. So first off, we have the 5-star sword, Emerald of Genesis. Its main stat is crit rate, and it gives the user a 12.8% energy regen buff. When the user uses their resonance skill, they'll get a 6% attack buffs for 10 seconds, and this buff can stack up to 2 times. So Emerald of Genesis ends up being a really universal weapon option for sword users, because you get the crit rate buff, the energy buff, and the attack as well. So pretty much any DPS or sub DPS character can make really great use of it, of course given that they're a sword user. And this is, this includes characters like Chang-Li, Rover, Don Jin, Sanhua. They're going to perform noticeably better with Emerald of Genesis over other options, because not just with the 5-star stats being higher than 4-star options, but also the crit rate main stat is going to help with some extra consistency as well, in addition to the extra buffs you get on it through the passive there. So not only that, I also do think that this weapon will age pretty well. I think a lot of the weapons, honestly, for the standards will age pretty well because of the energy they give. So I do think that this is going to be a really great choice overall. Then next up, we have Lustrous Razor, which is the standard 5-star Broadblade weapon. Its main stat is attack percent, and it gives the same energy regen buff as the Emerald Genesis. And each time the user uses their resonance skill, they'll get a 7% damage bonus for resonance liberation for 12 seconds, and this can stack up to 3 times as well. And this is going to mainly be good on Broadblade DPS characters like Kalchara and Jian, and at the time of recording this, we don't have official confirmation of Jinxi's kit, but we do know she will be a Broadblade, so if she is like a DPS kind of character, I think she could probably benefit from this as well. And I do think that this is overall a very good weapon, but with the with there currently not being too many Broadblade characters, if you don't have Kalchara, or you didn't pull for Jian, if you're not pulling for Jin C, you might not see as much value for this weapon. But if you are using Broadblade characters, Lustrous Razor is a very good weapon option. Then next up, we have Static Mist. This is the 5-star pistol, and for its main stat, it does have crit rate, and for its passive, it gives the same energy regen buff of 12.8%, and whenever the user has their outro skill activate, it will give a 10% attack buff to the incoming character for 14 seconds. So not only does this weapon help out a lot of sub DPS characters or even DPS characters with the extra crit rate, but sub DPSs are really going to benefit a lot from it, because they are going to be able to not only get their outro skill, which a lot of sub DPS characters tend to have a kind of buff for their outro skill that'll pass on to the next character, but not just that buff, but they'll also have the extra 10% attack from the Static Mist passive, and that's going to be really good on especially Mortefi right now. If we get more sub DPS like buffer kind of pistol users, then they're going to really like this weapon as well. Then next up, we have the 5-star Gauntlet from the standard banner, Abyss Surges. Its main stat is attack percent, and it also does have the same energy regen buff on it. And whenever the wearer for the Abyss Surges uses their resonance skill, their basic attack damage will get a 10% damage buff for 8 seconds, and the reverse of this is also true, meaning that when you hit an enemy with a basic attack, you'll get a Resonant Skill damage buff of 10% for the 8 seconds. And I do think this is overall a very strong weapon for Gauntlet users like Ling Yang, Johnson, if you're using the DPS build for her, because it is more of a DPS kind of Gauntlet. And I do think that the extra energy will also be helpful in getting ultimates faster, and overall that makes Abyss Surges just a pretty solid weapon choice for if you are using one of those like Gauntlet characters. And of course, the more Gauntlet characters we get in the game moving forward, the more possibilities you'll have to be able to use Abyss Surges. Then our last standard 5-star weapon is the Rectifier Cosmic Ripples. Its main stat is attack percent, and of course, as we said for all of these, it has that same 12.8% energy regen buff unconditionally in its passive. So when the user hits an enemy with their basic attack, they get a basic attack damage buff of 3.2% for 8 seconds, and you can stack this buff up to 5 times. And I do think that this is overall a very solid weapon, especially since I feel like a good amount of the rectifiers are going to be using basic attacks a lot, to whether it be to just get their damage off or fill up their forte meter. And I think this is very good for Encore and Yinlin. But I do think that the one thing holding this weapon back right now, which it will definitely change as the game progresses and we get more characters that use rectifiers, Encore and Yinlin are the only rectifiers that can take advantage of the weapon, because there are 2 other rectifiers in Verina and Baizha, and both of them are more of like support kind of characters, so they're not going to really want to use this rectifier weapon that is going to buff their damage, because that's not what they're really trying to do. It could, could be like a okay-ish option on Verina because of the attack scaling, but it's not going to be something that you're going to get that much value on in comparison to characters like Yinlin, Encore, or any other DPS rectifier in the future. So yeah, for now, I see a little bit less value for this weapon, but it could also be one that ages very well if we get a really good or some other really good rectifier characters coming out in the future. So now that we've gone over each of the standard 5-star weapons, I want to give my thoughts on which ones are going to have the most value and I think are the best options overall. And as I said in the beginning, I think it's important to note that depending on where your account is and what characters you are using, what characters you want to use, one weapon that I might say doesn't have as much value might actually be the best option for your account. So definitely take a look and think about what you are using on your account and what you think you're going to have the most fun with, because I do think being able to enjoy the game and having the best for the characters that you enjoy is the way you should go for anything like this, where you can choose what you're getting. So now to go into like my thoughts overall, I think to try to cover the most situations possible, I think you want if you want the weapons with the highest amount of value for you, you're either gonna want to go with Emerald of Genesis, the sword, or Static Mist, the pistol. And for every weapon for the standard 5-stars, they have that energy regen, so that's something you're gonna get no matter which weapon you pick. I do think that the crit rate main stat is extremely good for both of these, because that's just gonna make your relic farming a little bit more flexible, because you won't have to get as many crit rate substats on those. And I said relic, I mean echo farming. Yeah, your echo farming is gonna be a bit more flexible for you, so that'll definitely be helpful in trying to get your characters built. And these weapons are just pretty universal for a lot of types of characters, more so Emerald of Genesis there, because really any DPS sub DPS can get the full effect of it, whereas for Static Mist, you are going to get a lot of benefit from Mortefi especially, but other pistol users who might not have a buff on their outro skill, it could be a nice little, boost for them to be in a kind of sub DPS role, but Mortefi is by far going to get the most value until we get another sub DPS or like buffer pistol user. So yeah, I do think that the other options, Cosmic Ripples, Abyss Surges, and Lustrous Razor are very good. But I do think that if you're going for the weapon that's going to give you the most value overall, and you're trying to be a bit more try-hard with the game, I do think that Emerald of Genesis and Static Mist are probably going to be your best options overall. But now, for the final part of this, I'm going to be picking my 5-star weapon here. I just hit Union level 45 today, at the day I'm recording this video, and while I did talk up Emerald of Genesis and Static Mist a bunch because they are very good weapons, but I've decided, because I'm going to be pulling for Jinxie, and I am using Kalachara currently, I am actually going to be picking up Lustrous Razor, so I can have Lustrous Razor on one of them, and then I can run Helios Cleaver on the other. I'm not sure which direction I'll go yet for those. I'll probably test it out and see how they feel, but for me, I'm going to go Lustrous Razor, and then I'm going to use the choose your 5-star weapon from the summon. I'm going to use that for Emerald of Genesis. I already have that selected there. So yeah, we are going to go Lustrous Razor. Let's pick that up. There we go. We got that for the account here. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what weapon you chose for your free 5-star at UL45. But with that, I'm going to end it off here. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this guide helped you to make a good decision on which weapon you want to choose for it, because free 5-star weapon is very nice to have, regardless of which decision you end up making for it. But if you enjoyed and haven't already, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. The support's greatly appreciated. And I will see you all next time.